Hey everybody, welcome back to PhotoRec.tv. I'm Toby, and in this video, I want to give you an update on my quest for the perfect travel laptop. I also want to discuss how Adobe products are running on this new M1 Air and share some really cool tips for setting up your Mac for some serious efficiency. Well, actually, it's kind of a big clue about where I landed with my quest. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. I run my own PhotoRec.tv on Squarespace. I love how easy it is to add new content. Archer loves the taste of Squarespace. You can try it out for a free 14-day trial. Go to squarespace.com/PhotoRecTV. You're going to save 10% when you do buy. Thanks, Squarespace. All right, quick background story. The previous 6 years, I've been hauling around this 15-inch MacBook Pro. It has worked really well. It's a great machine for using Lightroom, teaching Lightroom on the go, video editing, but it added some serious weight to my bag. But geez, let's have a moment of silence for all of these lovely ports. I miss all of those ports. But it died, so I started looking around for something else. I felt like the smallest, most powerful options that were at decent prices were Windows. Plus, I kind of like the idea of refreshing my knowledge on Windows. I've used it in the past, but it's been a while. I often get asked Lightroom questions. Sometimes the answers are different on Windows machines, so I wanted to be knowledgeable. I found this Dell XPS 13 2018 model on B&H used. I crunched some numbers and felt like the cost to weight to power was really good in this little laptop. And I've been using it now for the last 8 months. And let me tell you what I love about it. First up, this compact size. That plus the build quality, this laptop feels great in the hand. And even though it's a little bit smaller than the MacBook Air we're going to talk about in a minute, it has the same screen size with an even higher screen resolution, 4K. It's a gorgeous screen. It has 3 USB-C ports and 2 on one side and 1 on the other. And any one of those ports works for power. That really gives you a nice flexibility when you're plugging in on a plane or sitting on the couch and the power cord is best off on your left or the right. You also get a micro SD card slot, which is a nice little bonus. Inside, it has an i7 2 gigahertz with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a large 1 terabyte SSD, which means on some trips, I can actually leave backup drives at home. I'll keep the original photos on SD cards and just treat the internal drive as a backup option. Now, I bought this used for about $1,200. New, they sell closer to $15 to $16 and actually a little bit higher depending on what bells and whistles you got. But there are some things that I don't like. This Dell model has a touchscreen. Call me old school, but I disabled it after a month. I mean, here's the issue. The Windows interface is not optimized for touch. It's just so small, and I had more accidental touches than practical ones. What's the opposite of accidental? On purpose touches. So I also don't love smearing up the screen, the same screen I'm looking at to carefully edit my pictures. Now, in time, maybe my feelings about that will change. You certainly can call me a grouchy old man in the comments if you want, but I didn't like the touchscreen. I also didn't love the Windows Hello login. That's the face unlock. It's so slow. Rarely did I open it up and it look at me and launch Windows. Nope, usually what it did is it looked at me for a minute, then decided I was a little scruffy looking, looked at me for another minute, and then let me in. Or told me it failed, and then I'd have to log in with a PIN. And there's no fingerprint reader in here. I find that to be a very fast way to log in and sign in to password-protected sites as well, so I miss that. And then we have that camera placement. Now, I think Dell has fixed this on newer models, but this model, to keep the bevel small, place the camera directly at the bottom of the screen. There's no way that you can use the keyboard during a Zoom call. And then we see these slots here at the bottom. Those are for the fan. It is frequent, it is loud, and occasionally there's some grinding noises, which seems to be, I don't want to say a widespread problem with the Dell XPSs, but it's certainly something that more than a couple people are talking about on the message boards. And then there's the fact that it runs Windows. Yes, I know. First off, I bought this because I wanted to use Windows. but it's not an enjoyable experience for me. There are, I recognize, lots of people out there happily using Windows, But when I compare it to the Mac that I use day in, day out, first off, there's some apps on Windows that just don't seem to do well on this small but high resolution screen. And when I look at how often Lightroom crashes on here compared to the Mac is a clear winner. And then the search is just so dang slow. Not so on the Macs. So when these M1 MacBooks were announced, I was intrigued. Early reports seemed to be good. So I bought this M1 Air. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 SSD in here to try for myself. That cost me about $1,400. Why the Air and not a Pro? Well, I wanted to keep the weight and price as low as possible. This is a travel machine for me. I don't need it to be a powerhouse. Let me tell you some of the things that I like about the Mac. The MacBook Air is completely silent. There is no fan in here. I also love the fact that I lift the lid and it's ready to go every time. And if I'm logged out when I lift the lid, an instant touch to the fingerprint reader and I'm logged in. And the fingerprint reader integration with Safari makes it so easy to log into sites. We've got excellent battery life in here, noticeably better than on the Dell. Now keep in mind, when you hear people raving about the battery life on these new MacBooks, both the Airs and the Pros, they're not using Adobe programs. They're browsing the web, checking their email, maybe watching a video. When you are using processor-intensive programs, the battery life on all of these laptops takes a hit. It's still good on the Air, but don't expect anything amazing. And then we come to the performance category. It beats the Dell in all of the Lightroom categories that I compared, and honestly, it actually even compares really well to my 27-inch iMac sitting here, which is an older iMac. But I am impressed with the performance of this machine, and most of my experience in using this and being impressed with the performance so far is using Lightroom Classic, which is not Silicon native at that time. That means it's being translated through Rosetta, and performance feels excellent, very, very smooth. And then we've got Final Cut, which is a Silicon native app. It's been working excellently. I'm really happy. Last week, I decided to use this machine to stream my hour-and-a-half long weekly photo show. Typically, I do it from my iMac, so I'm streaming, I've got a guest on, I'm screen sharing, editing in Lightroom. I did all of that for 90 minutes on this machine, and of course, it was completely silent for that. And at the end of the 90 minutes, the bottom was barely warm. That's pretty impressive. The keyboard is excellent, and yes, this is on me, and classic old dog, new tricks, impossible, but the fact that as I go back and forth from this Mac to the Windows machine, I spent way too often hitting the wrong keys. And having the same machine when I'm out the door or in my office, all of the apps, all of the features, all of the functions, that's good for my getting old man brain. But it is not a perfect machine, so here's a couple of things that I don't love about the Mac. You only have 2 USB slots, and they're both on the same side. Now, one of those USB-C slots is going to be used for power, which really means you only have 1 slot, which means you're going to be in dongle hell. Now, most of the time that I'm working with this laptop, I really just need it plugged in to 1 single drive. So it's not that big a deal until I want to import pictures. Then I need 2 things plugged in at the same time. And yes, the battery life is great, so I could have the drive plugged in and the camera or a reader plugged in, but I want it to still have power sometimes. Or maybe it's almost dead and I need to plug it in. So I don't like that. I also don't like the front edge. Now, if you're typing correctly, I think your wrists aren't really resting here. But for me, my wrists rest here often. And the front of this machine is uncomfortably sharp. But those are minor points. Overall, I'm really happy with the MacBook and its performance, and I'll be selling the Dell and keeping the MacBook. I'm really looking forward to more improvements when Adobe releases the Silicon version of Lightroom Classic. I've been using the beta version of Photoshop, and it seems to be good, although crashes occasionally because, well, it's a beta. But now let me share some tips for setting up any new Mac, right after I remind you that this video is sponsored by Squarespace. You see, Squarespace is more than just a website. It is an all-in-one platform. What does that mean? Well, for photographers, it's super easy to build a website that looks beautiful, is personalized for you, and you control what is around your work. What is going to show up next to your photos? That's not something you have control over if you use social media platforms. And Squarespace takes the guesswork out of formatting your images for display on the web. Upload a nice high-quality file, and Squarespace creates 7 variations of each uploaded image to ensure perfect display on any screen size. That's huge, or small if you're looking on a small screen. If you need one-on-one help, they're there with live chat. And that all-in-one platform I opened up with, yes, you can display your work, you can sell your work through their easy-to-set-up e-commerce options, or maybe you want to take online bookings or start a members-only section. All of these are easy options when you run your site on Squarespace. I moved my own site to Squarespace a few years ago, and I love the peace of mind that move brought. No more worry about security and keeping plugins updated. All of that's handled for me, and I'm actually saving money on Squarespace. Try them out today. They offer a free 14-day trial, no credit card required. Just start at squarespace.com/photorectTV, and you'll save 10% when you make your first purchase. Thanks, Squarespace. Let's talk about some quick Mac tips. The first is to change the trackpad's click function. Now, right now, to click on a folder or function, the default setup is you have to click to select that folder, file, whatever it is. And you get an audible click, you have to press down on the trackpad. And this trackpad does still offer that force click that when you click harder gives you something else. Don't ever use that. But I also don't want to even click to select something. So they give you an option. In System Preferences, Trackpad, you have the option to enable tap with one finger to click. So I'm going to enable that. Now, to click on a file, folder, I just tap. That's it. And then, of course, I can click and drag that file around. Just a single tap, and then, of course, I could do my copy, paste, and move. Notice in here that secondary clicking, that's another term for right-clicking, is 2 fingers. I just want to point this out because a lot of times I work with people on Mac, and when they don't have a mouse attached, they're not sure how to right-click. It is 2 fingers. Brings up your right context menu. So this is a great place to learn about all of the different gestures and options that you have for using the trackpad. And I love the trackpad. Many of these I don't use though. Sometimes I accidentally activate them. And if I find that I'm doing that more often than I want, I'll just come in here and turn them off. So if that's happening to you as well, come on in and turn those off. Let's move on to the Finder. So I'm going to open up the Finder. It jumps to this Recents folder. I have a list of favorite folders over here. And my first suggestion for you is to make sure that this list matches the folders that you are frequently using. It's very easy to put folders over here. You could simply drag from, I did the force click. You could simply drag and drop onto this favorites list. You're not moving that folder. You're just creating a shortcut here to that folder. And now anytime I go here, it's going to take me directly to that folder. If there are folders on this list that you don't use frequently, just drag them off to the right and you'll remove them. For instance, Creative Cloud files, that's a favorite put there by the Adobe Suite. I don't access my Creative Cloud files this way. I do it when I'm in Photoshop, if at all. So you can just drag that off and gone. Keep this nice and clean. If you want to organize it a little bit more, maybe alphabetical, or there's some other kind of organization that works for you, you can simply drag and drop wherever you need to put these folders. Now we're going to go into the View, and I actually have this turned on already, Hide Path Bar. So at the bottom of this folder, you notice, not by default, it is not on, but I love this little breadcrumb trail. When I'm exporting folders, when I'm exporting photos, especially from Lightroom or Photoshop, and oftentimes I have that export function set so that a Finder window pops up at the end of the export. It's a nice visual way to see the computer from across the room and know that the export has finished. I want to also make sure that I have truly put them where I think they should be. So when I'm looking at this Finder window, I want to know, where is this Creative Clouds folder that I'm currently in? Well, it's in my username, in the users, on the hard drive. Where's my Instagram folder that I'm working in over here? Well, that's in my Google Drive, which is on my username, which is on user's hard drive. So that path bar, view, hide path bar, or show path bar, I find to be very, very nice. Now we're going to go into Finder Preferences. And first thing I want to show you is right here, General. You can choose what is shown on the desktop. Maybe you like to keep your desktop ultra clean. So you could remove external disks, connected servers, CDs, DVDs, and iPods. I like to have external disks on there. That's a nice visual way to know instantly whether or not I can see that I have the drive plugged in, but does Mac know that I have the drive plugged in? Sidebar. Look, this is another way to kind of have or choose what is showing up there in the sidebar. So if you want your movies folder, you could click it, and now it's going to show up in this list at the bottom. And of course, you can still arrange it so that it's alphabetical if that's the kind of person you are. You have options for more of the locations down below. Now in the Advanced tab, there's a couple of things that I want to do or suggest to do. By default, when performing a search, search this Mac is the option. I don't like that. I want to search the current folder. What that means is over here inside a Finder folder, the little magnifying glass, you can search for files and automatically it's going to constrain that search to the folder you're in. I often go to the folder and know the file is in there, and so want to search just that folder. It's as easy as one click, though, to expand this search to the whole Mac. And then you can do that right there. And do you see how fast this search is? Windows people, I'm sorry. What is wrong with Windows search? All right, so we're going to close that off. And over here, this actually, in a nod to Windows having some features that I do like better, by default, in Windows, when you're going through a folder that contains other folders, those folders are always up at the top of the list, and then it lists the files. In Mac, everything is alphabetical, and folders can be just mixed in. For instance, I have one folder in here called Stories, and you can see it's between Star Stacks and Thor's Well. So I like to see my folders at the top, so I do check that. It's up to you what you choose there. We're done with Finder Preferences. The next thing I want to do, it's very similar to working with this Favorites here, is your dock has a spot for folders. Right now I just have a Downloads folder sitting here, but you can put any folders in this location. For instance, I want the Instagrams folder to go down here. What my Instagram folder is images that are exported and ready to be dragged and dropped onto a place like Later, which then shares out the Instagram, or I share it to Facebook. It's really kind of my social share folder. So I'm going to go back a level to Google Drive. I'm going to find that Instagrams folder, and I'm going to drag it down and drop it on my dock. Now that it's on the dock, I click it, and it opens up in this grid view. I right-click on it. I want to show it as a fan, and I want to be sorted by date added. That means that when I click, it flies out, and the bottom image or movie is always the most recently added file. So really quickly, as I'm exporting into this Instagram folder, I don't have to think or go look for the folder. All I have to do is go to my dock, click, grab that last file out of there, and drag it to wherever I want. And I can drop it right back in there as well. If you don't like this view, notice that it's showing the last file in there. You can actually change that to be displayed as a folder instead of a stack of images. That's just a little bit more visual for me. And if you wanted to get really geeky, you can actually customize the look of the folders themselves for each of these. So if you want a nice clean folder look for each, but you don't want them to just be a blue, indistinguishable, nondescript folder, you can do that as well. One other folder that I put down here is my screenshots, because I'm frequently using screenshots. Those are also in Google Drive. Here they are right here. So I'm going to drag those down and place them on the dock. Now, if you notice, my dock on the left is fairly clean. I really only have stuff here that I'm using frequently. If there are applications here that you're not using regularly, remove them. It's a right click, and a remove from dock. That's all you have to do. If there is a application, the other option you can do is unclick keep in dock under options there. For instance, Lightroom right now. Lightroom is not down here, so I'll just do my quick search for Lightroom. That was Command Spacebar that brings up Spotlight in that instant search that works so well. So Lightroom's running now, which means it's shown up on the dock, and I can right-click on it, which is the two-finger tap, go to Options, Keep in Dock. And it makes that little migration across the split so that it now is going to stay there in the dock, even when I close that application. No dot, it's closed, but it's still in my dock. If you'd like to quickly adjust the size of the dock, hold your mouse over that little line and you can click and drag up or down to change the size of the dock. And finally, I mentioned screenshots. I take screenshots often as part of teaching Lightroom and Photoshop and for my own records, bank statements, all kinds of stuff. I'm taking screenshots constantly. And as you can see, they're backed up online to my Google Drive folder. Command Shift 4 in the Mac allows you to bring up little crosshairs and then select what you want to take a screenshot of so you don't have to screenshot the whole page or screen. Now, by default, those screenshots land on the desktop, which I think is a quick trip to Clutterville. I have adjusted where my screenshots go. And let's go to the screenshot application real quick. It's under Applications, Utilities, Screenshot. This little bar comes up, and under the Options, Save To, you have several different options. You won't have Screenshot Sync, but you can click Other Location and then make or choose a folder where you want screenshots to go. What I do every once in a while is I go through those screenshot folders, clear out everything that was just a temporary, but keep those, again, important statements that I might need to refer back to later, order confirmations, anything that's not coming into my mailbox. All right, we're going to wrap up there. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a quick thumbs up if you found it useful, and don't forget to hit subscribe along with pressing that little bell to be notified of future videos. I'd love a comment from you down below. How excited are you for the new M1s that are coming this year? M1Xs, maybe inside iMacs, maybe inside larger MacBooks for those of you who aren't so concerned about size and weight? You can let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.